Mother was trying to make the baby stop crying on the flight until the millionaire made an unexpected request. Emily Collins felt every stare like a needle prick. Little Noah had been crying non-stop for 40 minutes, and nothing she tried was working. She rocked him in her arms, offered the bottle, sang softly, but the 8-month-old only increased the volume of his cries. That's when the man beside her stood up. Emily braced herself for the complaint that was sure to come. All the other first-class passengers had already cast disapproving looks. She was about to apologize when he extended his hands. "May I?" the man asked in a calm voice. Emily blinked in surprise. He wore an impeccable navy blue suit, had stylish glasses, and a watch she recognized as extremely expensive. His hands were reaching toward the baby. You want to—" she stammered. "Let me see if I can help," he said, with a small smile. Emily hesitated only a second before handing over Noah. Her hands trembled with exhaustion and desperation. The man held the baby with a firmness that showed experience. His movements were confident as he discreetly examined the child. "How many months is he?" he asked without taking his eyes off Noah. 8 months, Emily replied, wiping away tears that had begun to fall. "And when did the crying start?" "Right after takeoff. He was fine before. I don't understand what's happening." The man brought his face closer to the baby and observed carefully. He gently touched behind Noah's right ear, and the baby reacted with an even sharper cry. "It's his ear," he said, turning to Emily. "The airplane pressurization is bothering him. Did you notice if he had any cold symptoms in recent days?" Emily thought quickly. Noah had sneezed a few times the previous week, but nothing that seemed serious. "A bit of a runny nose, but it went away," she admitted, feeling immediate guilt. "Don't blame yourself. This happens often. The problem is the ear canal is still sensitive, and the pressure change causes pain," he explained while continuing to gently rock Noah. Emily watched how naturally he held her son. There was something about the way his fingers supported the baby's head, how he maintained a relaxed but secure posture. "Do you have children?" she asked quietly. His expression changed for a fraction of a second. A flash of pain crossed his face before he regained his composure. "I did," he said simply. Emily bit her lip, regretting having asked. A heavy silence settled between them as Noah continued crying, though a bit more quietly. "My name is Richard Harrison," he said, breaking the silence. "And you don't need to apologize for asking." Emily Collins," she replied, "and I'm sorry I didn't mean to—" "I know," Richard gently interrupted. "I was a pediatrician for 30 years. I've seen many babies with this same problem." The revelation surprised Emily. A doctor. That explained the confidence with which he held Noah. "Were you retired?" "Let's say yes," Richard answered vaguely. A flight attendant approached with a concerned expression. She was a woman in her 50s, hair pulled back in a perfect bun. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, looking at the baby and then at Richard. "Some passengers are complaining about the noise." Emily felt her face heat up with shame. Richard, however, remained calm. "Everything's under control, Deborah," he said, reading the name on the woman's badge. "The baby has ear discomfort because of the pressure. It will pass." "Mr. Harrison," Deborah spoke with a respectful tone that caught Emily's attention. "You know, we have rules about—" "I know," Richard interrupted firmly but not rudely. "And I guarantee there will be no further disturbance." Deborah nodded and walked away, casting one last worried glance in their direction. Emily noticed something in the interaction. The flight attendant knew Richard, or at least knew who he was. "She knows you," Emily commented more as a statement than a question. "I fly this route often," Richard replied without elaborating. Noah gradually began to calm down. The crying turned into spaced-out sobs. Richard continued making gentle rocking movements, almost imperceptible. "How did you do that?" Emily asked in admiration. "Technique and patience, and a bit of luck," he admitted with a half-smile. "But he's still in pain. Do you have any medicine for him?" Emily hurriedly opened the diaper bag. Her hands were still shaking as she searched. There were bottles, diapers, extra clothes, but nothing for ear pain. "I didn't bring anything specific," she admitted, feeling guilt tighten her chest again. "I didn't think I'd need it." No problem. There's something that can help, temporarily. Richard called Deborah back and asked for warm water. When she brought it, he moistened a clean diaper from Emily's bag and gently pressed it against Noah's ear. The baby calmed down almost instantly. The heat helps relieve the pain, he explained. It's not permanent, but it'll provide relief until we land. Emily watched her son finally relax in Richard's arms. She felt a mix of gratitude and inadequacy. How didn't she know how to do this? How did such a simple thing not cross her mind? "Thank you," she whispered, feeling new tears threatening to fall. "I'm a terrible mother." "Don't say that," Richard replied firmly. "You're alone on a plane with a baby for the first time. This would be hard for anyone." "How do you know it's my first time?" "By the way you packed the diaper bag. It's very organized, very prepared. Experienced mothers learn to bring fewer things. And by your expression when he started crying, I've seen a lot of that at the practice." Emily didn't know whether to be offended or impressed by his observation. She chose to accept it as a compliment to her preparation. "I'm going to meet my husband," she said, not quite knowing why. Maybe it was the relief of Noah finally being quiet. Maybe it was the unexpected kindness from this stranger. "He's been working in New York City for 6 months. He got a promotion and had to move before us." "And you stayed where?" "In Boston. That's where my family lives, where Noah was born." Richard nodded, but didn't ask more questions. Emily looked out the window, watching the clouds pass by. The anxiety that had lessened with Noah's silence began to return for other reasons. The meeting with Jason, the expectations, the new life waiting for her. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said, turning her attention back to Richard. "Of course. Why did you offer to help?" Most people would have complained. Richard was silent for a few seconds, looking at Noah, who now rested peacefully in his arms. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that Emily couldn't identify. "Because I've been on the other side of this situation, and no one helped me when I needed it." Before Emily could ask more, a lady sitting in front turned around. She had grey hair styled elegantly and wore a pearl necklace. Her face was red with irritation. "With all due respect," she said with no respect in her voice, "but that baby shouldn't be in first class. There are appropriate places for noisy children." Emily felt her blood run cold. She opened her mouth to respond, but Richard was faster. "With all due respect," he said with an icy voice, "babies have the same right to be anywhere on this plane, and if you're bothered, perhaps you should consider private flights." The woman was speechless. Other passengers turned to watch the scene. Emily wanted to sink into the armchair and disappear. "I know who you are, Richard Harrison," the woman said disdainfully, "and your money doesn't give you the right to speak to me like that." "Not my money, but my experience as a doctor gives me the authority to say you're being irrational and cruel to a mother who's doing the best she can." The silence that followed was heavy. The woman huffed indignantly and turned away. Emily was shocked. Richard was rich. Very rich, it seemed, and he was defending her in a way no one ever had. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us who are just starting out. Now continuing. "You didn't have to do that," Emily said quietly. "Yes, I did," Richard replied, looking at her. "No one deserves to be treated that way, especially a mother caring for a sick baby." Noah stirred in his arms and began to fuss. Richard gently handed him back to Emily, who settled him against her chest. The baby was calmer but still uncomfortable. "What will you do when you arrive in New York City?" Richard asked. "Jason will pick me up at the airport. He rented an apartment near his work." "And do you know the city?" Emily shook her head. New York City had always seemed huge and intimidating on the news. The thought of living there with a small baby and without her support network made her stomach churn. "It's overwhelming at first," Richard said, as if reading her thoughts, "but you get used to it, and there are good pediatricians there. I can recommend a few." "Do you live in New York City?" "I do. I was born and raised there." Emily hesitated before asking the next question. Her curiosity was stronger than her manners. "The woman said she knew you. Are you famous?" Richard gave a humorless smile. "Let's say yes, but not in the way you might think. I used to own a chain of hospitals. I sold everything 3 years ago." "Why?" The question came out before Emily could filter it. Richard didn't seem offended, just tired. "Because I no longer saw any point in continuing," he replied honestly. "I built a medical empire, and in the end it meant nothing." Emily didn't know what to say. There was a deep pain in his words that she recognized. It was the kind of pain that doesn't heal with time. The plane began to shake with mild turbulence. Noah woke up frightened and started crying again, but this time it was different. Emily managed to calm him down more quickly, using the warm compress technique Richard had shown her. "See?" Richard said approvingly. "You're a fast learner." Emily smiled for the first time since they'd boarded the plane. It was a small but genuine smile. Maybe she wasn't a completely lost mother after all. Her phone vibrated with a message. It was from Jason. Emily opened it hopefully, but her smile faded as she read, "Emily, a last-minute meeting came up. I won't be able to pick you up at the airport. Take a taxi and send me the address when you arrive. Sorry." She reread the message 3 times, trying to find some word that would soften the disappointment. She didn't find any. Jason didn't ask how the flight was. He didn't ask about Noah. He just informed her he wouldn't be there. "Bad news?" Richard asked, noticing her expression. Emily thought about lying, about saying everything was fine, but she was so tired of pretending everything was okay. "My husband won't be able to pick me up," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "He has a meeting." Richard said nothing for a moment. He just watched her with those eyes that seemed to see too much. "What time is his meeting?" "I don't know." He didn't specify. "And does this happen often? Him cancelling plans at the last minute?" Emily wanted to defend Jason. She wanted to say it was just because he was starting a new job and needed to prove himself, but that would be a lie. "It happens," she admitted quietly. Noah started moving again. Emily checked the diaper and realized it needed changing. She stood up with difficulty, holding the baby and the diaper bag. "Do you need help?" Richard offered. "No, thank you. I can manage." In the cramped airplane bathroom, Emily struggled to change Noah's diaper in the tiny space. The baby wouldn't stop moving, and she had to hold him with one hand while trying to clean him with the other. When she finally finished, she was sweating, and Noah was crying again. She looked at her reflection in the small mirror. Deep dark circles marked her face. Her hair was messy, and she barely recognized herself. When was the last time she slept through the night? When was the last time she felt pretty? When was the last time Jason looked at her the way he used to? The tears came without warning. Emily wiped them away quickly but couldn't stop. 6 months. 6 months since Jason left, promising it would be temporary, that she and Noah would join him soon, that everything would be fine. But it wasn't fine. The video calls became less frequent. The conversations grew shorter, and now he couldn't even be bothered to pick her up from the airport. A knock on the door made her pull herself together. "Is everything all right in there?" It was Deborah's voice. "Yes, I'm coming out," Emily replied, wiping her face. When she returned to her seat, Richard was looking out the window. He turned when she sat down, and Emily realized he noticed her red eyes but didn't comment. "Has Noah calmed down?" he asked simply. "For now," Emily answered, settling the baby. The rest of the flight passed in thoughtful silence. Richard seemed lost in thought, and Emily had no energy for conversation. Noah finally slept, exhausted from all the crying. When the plane began its descent, Emily felt anxiety tighten again. New York City, a huge city where she knew no one, an apartment she had never seen, a husband who was becoming a stranger. "Emily," Richard said, breaking the silence, "can I ask you a favor?" "Of course." "Let me give you a ride to your apartment." Emily blinked in surprise. "You don't have to. I'll take a taxi like Jason said." "I know I don't have to, but I'd like to do it," Richard insisted, "and I have to make a stop before heading home. It's no trouble." Emily hesitated. Accepting help from strangers wasn't something she did. Her mother always said to be careful, not to trust strangers. But Richard didn't seem like a stranger, not after how he had helped with Noah. Not after how he defended her from that awful woman. "All right," she accepted. "Thank you." The plane landed smoothly at JFK International Airport. Emily gathered her things while other passengers rushed to get off. Richard waited patiently until she was ready. At the arrival gate, Emily felt the size of New York City for the first time. The airport was immense, full of people coming and going in all directions. Noah started crying again, frightened by the noise and movement. "This way," Richard said, guiding her through the crowd. Emily noticed how people made way for him. There was something in his posture, in his bearing, that commanded respect. She found herself following in his wake, holding Noah tightly. They reached the baggage claim area, and Emily began scanning for Jason. Maybe he had managed to get out of his meeting. Maybe he was there waiting with flowers and an apology. "Looking for someone?" Richard asked. "My husband. But I guess he really couldn't make it." "Emily!" She turned and saw not Jason, but an elegant woman coming toward her. She was about 50, with well-cut short hair and a warm smile, but Emily didn't know her. "Richard, she's here," the woman said as she approached. Emily looked from one to the other, confused. "Emily, this is my sister, Margaret," Richard introduced. "Margaret, this is Emily and little Noah." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Margaret said, extending her hand. "My brother called me from the plane and told me about you." Emily shook her hand while still processing. Richard had called his sister. "Why?" "I don't understand," she said. "Margaret is a psychologist," Richard explained, "and she works with a support program for first-time mothers at Mercy Medical Center. I thought you two should meet." Emily felt her face grow warm. He had noticed that she was struggling, that she was desperate, that she was drowning. "I don't need psychological help," she said defensively. "No one said you do," Margaret replied gently. "But why don't we talk a bit? Just the two of us. Richard can stay with Noah." "No," Emily said too quickly. "I mean, thank you, but I need to go. Jason is waiting for me." "Jason cancelled, remember?" Richard said bluntly. "And Margaret lives only 20 minutes from here. How about a quick coffee, just so you can catch your breath before heading to the apartment?" Emily wanted to refuse. She wanted to grab Noah and run, but her arms ached from holding the baby. Her back begged for a moment of rest, and a part of her, the part that had been suffocating for months, desperately wanted to talk to someone. "Just a quick coffee," she finally agreed. Margaret smiled and gestured for her to follow. Richard took the diaper bag from Emily, lightening her load. They left the airport and got into a shiny black car that was waiting. Emily sat in the back, holding Noah. Richard sat in the front with the driver. Margaret sat beside her. "How old is Noah?" Margaret asked kindly. 8 months, Emily replied. "And are you sleeping well?" The simple question opened a floodgate. Emily felt the tears returning, but this time she didn't try to hold them back. "No," she admitted, "I haven't slept properly since he was born." Margaret just nodded, as if she already knew. Her hand lightly touched Emily's arm in a comforting gesture. The car stopped in front of a small but elegant cafe. Richard helped Emily out while Margaret retrieved a baby seat from the trunk. "You come prepared," Emily commented. "I work with many mothers," Margaret explained with a smile. "I've learned to always be ready." Inside the cafe, they sat at a discreet table in the corner. A waitress brought water and menus, but Emily couldn't focus on the options. "Just a latte," she ordered. "And a slice of carrot cake," Margaret added. "You need to eat." Emily was about to protest, but realized she couldn't remember her last meal. Breakfast? No, she had skipped it. Dinner the night before? She had barely touched it. Richard settled Noah into the high chair with an ease that showed practice. The baby was finally calm, watching everything around him with curiosity. "Emily," Margaret began when the waitress had moved away, "Richard told me a little about your situation. I hope you don't mind." Emily looked at Richard, who looked back without averting his gaze. "What exactly did he say?" "That you're moving to New York City to join your husband, that you're traveling alone with a small baby, and that you seem to be carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders." Emily let out a humorless laugh. "It's not that dramatic." "Isn't it?" Margaret asked gently. "Then tell me, how do you really feel?" The sincerity of the question caught Emily off guard. No one had asked her that in months. Her mother asked if Noah was okay. Jason asked if she was managing the bills. But no one asked how she, Emily, felt. "Tired," she answered honestly. "Alone. Scared. Scared of what? Everything. Of not being a good mother. Of Jason having changed. About not being able to adjust to New York City. About Noah not adjusting. About not being enough. The words came out in a flood. Margaret just listened, her face showing empathy but not pity. Emily couldn't stand pity. "When was the last time you did something for yourself?" Margaret asked. Emily thought, and thought some more and couldn't remember. "I don't know," she admitted, ashamed. "And when was the last time someone helped you with Noah? That gave you some time for yourself." "My mother sometimes watched him, but she works and—" "But you felt like you were bothering her, right?" Margaret finished. "That you should handle it alone because, after all, it's your responsibility." Emily nodded, feeling the tears return. How did Margaret know exactly what she felt? The coffee and cake arrived. Emily picked up the cup with trembling hands. The first sip of hot coffee was like a hug. The first piece of cake melted in her mouth, and she realized how hungry she was. "Emily, can I tell you something?" Margaret said after waiting for her to eat a little. "You're not alone in this. What you're feeling is more common than you think." "Everyone makes it look so easy," Emily said. "I see other mothers on social media, and they seem so happy, so in control." "Social media lies," Richard interjected. "No one posts about being up at 3 a.m. with a crying baby. No one posts the days when they can barely take a shower." "How do you know that?" Emily asked. Richard and Margaret exchanged a look. It was Margaret who answered. "Richard had a daughter, Emma. She's no longer with us." The silence that followed was heavy. Emily looked at Richard and saw the raw pain on his face. It was the same pain she had noticed on the plane when she asked if he had children. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "It was a long time ago," Richard said, but his voice betrayed the lie. No matter how much time passed, that kind of pain had no expiration date. "Emma was only 3 years old," Margaret continued softly, "and since then Richard has distanced himself from everything involving children. Until today on the plane. It was the first time in 20 years that I saw my brother hold a baby." Emily looked at Richard with new understanding. He hadn't helped by chance or out of casual kindness. He had faced his own demons to help her and Noah. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you do that?" Richard took a long time to answer. When he did, his voice was heavy with emotion. "Because I saw in your expression the same desperation I felt back then. And no one helped me then. Everyone just said it was a phase, that it would pass, that I needed to be strong. But no one truly saw me. And I saw you," he continued, looking directly at Emily. "I saw a mother struggling alone, doing the best she could, and I thought that maybe, just maybe, I could do differently this time." Emily couldn't hold back the tears. They fell freely as she finally allowed herself to feel everything she had been repressing. The fear, the loneliness, the inadequacy, the exhaustion, everything came to the surface. Margaret moved to her side and hugged her. It was a maternal hug that Emily didn't know how much she needed. She allowed herself to receive the comfort, allowed herself to be vulnerable. Noah started to whimper in his carrier. Emily automatically went to get up, but Richard was faster. "Let me get him," he said, lifting the baby from the carrier. "You finish your coffee, be taken care of." When was the last time someone had taken care of her? Emily couldn't remember. They stayed at the cafe for another hour. Margaret explained about the support program for mothers that she coordinated at the hospital. She talked about support groups, about what the individual sessions were like, about the whole network of support available. "But I don't have money to pay for psychological treatment," Emily admitted, embarrassed. "You don't need to," Margaret replied. "The program is free. It's funded by private donations." Emily looked at Richard, who was holding Noah and gazing out the coffee shop window. He was the donor, she realized. That man who had lost so much was using his pain to help others. "I don't know," Emily hesitated. "I need to check with Jason first." "Check what?" Margaret asked. "If you can take care of your mental health?" The question was provocative but necessary. Emily realized she was always asking for permission. Permission to rest, to ask for help. to take care of herself. "You're right," she admitted. "It's just, Jason might not like it." "Why wouldn't he want you to be well?" Richard asked, turning around. Emily didn't know how to answer, because she actually didn't know if Jason would care. He had been so distant these past months that she wasn't sure what he thought or felt about anything. Her phone rang. It was Jason. "Hi," she answered, trying to keep her voice normal. "Emily, where are you? I thought you'd have arrived by now." "I'm still at the airport. The flight was a bit delayed," she lied. "Look, I'm not done here yet. Can you wait another 2 hours?" Emily closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. 2 more hours. Always a little more. Always the meeting. Always the work. Always something more important. "Actually," she said with a courage she didn't know she had, "I got a ride. I'm going straight to the apartment." "What ride? With whom?" "With a friend I made on the flight." It wasn't a complete lie. "She's from here in New York." "Oh, okay, then text me when you arrive. I have to get back to the meeting." And he hung up, without asking about the flight, without asking about Noah, without really asking anything. Emily put the phone down on the table harder than she intended. "He can't pick you up?" Margaret asked, already knowing the answer. "No, he's still in the meeting." "Which has been going on all day," Richard commented with a tone Emily couldn't identify. "It's a new job. He needs to prove himself," she automatically defended. "Emily," Margaret said, taking her hand, "can I ask you a difficult question?" Emily nodded, though she wasn't sure she wanted to hear it. "Does Jason give you emotional support? Does he help you with Noah? Is he present even when he's far away?" The questions hit Emily like punches, because she knew the answers and didn't want to admit them. "He works a lot," she replied weakly. "I didn't ask about his work. I asked about you." Emily fell silent. The answer was clear in the absence of words. "Let's take you home," Richard said gently. "And tomorrow, if you want. Margaret can visit you. No pressure, just to talk more." Emily agreed, too tired to argue. Richard paid the bill and they returned to the car. Emily provided the address of the apartment Jason had sent. During the drive, she looked out the window watching New York City pass by. The city was even bigger than she had imagined. Tall buildings, busy streets, people rushing in every direction. How was she going to survive here? They stopped in front of a residential building in the Upper East Side. It was a modern building, but without luxuries. Emily grabbed her suitcases from the trunk with the driver's help. "Do you have the key?" Richard asked. Emily checked her purse and found the envelope Jason had sent. Inside was the key and a paper with the apartment number. 504. "Let me help you up," Margaret offered. They entered the building and took the elevator. Emily felt a knot in her stomach tightening with each floor. When they reached the 5th floor, her hands were shaking as she tried to put the key in the lock. Richard gently took the key from her and opened the door. Emily entered what would be her new home. The apartment was small. A living room connected to an open kitchen, 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. The windows faced a neighboring building. There was no decoration at all. A few boxes stacked in the corner showed that Jason had started to unpack, but hadn't finished. "Welcome to your new home," Emily said, unable to hide the discouragement in her voice. Margaret brought the suitcases inside and looked around, assessing. "It has potential," she said, trying to be positive. "With a few touches, it'll feel cozy." Emily just nodded. Noah started crying again. Hunger. She needed to prepare the bottle. In the kitchen, she found the things she needed still in boxes. It took 15 minutes to find everything and prepare the bottle. Richard held Noah the whole time, calming the baby with that endless patience. "Where does Jason work?" Richard asked while Emily fed Noah. "At an advertising agency in Soho. He's a creative director." "And before? In Boston?" "He was a copywriter at a smaller agency. This promotion was big for him." Richard nodded thoughtfully. "And how long have you two been married?" 4 years. We dated for 2 before that." "And how was the marriage before he came to New York City?" Emily hesitated. It was an invasive question, but it was also a question no one had ever asked. "It was fine," she replied after a while. "Or at least I thought it was. But after Noah was born, it changed. How did it change? Jason became more distant, worked later, went out with friends more often, said he needed space because his life had changed so much. And your life? Margaret asked. Your life didn't change too. It changed completely, but I'm the mother. I was expected to adapt. And the father? Margaret pressed gently. Wasn't he expected to adapt too? Emily had never thought of it that way. She assumed it was her role to sacrifice, adapt, make everything work. Jason just needed to work and bring money home. I don't know, she finally admitted. Noah finished the bottle and yawned. Emily rocked him automatically, her arms accustomed to the weight and movement. Where will Noah sleep? Richard asked, looking around. Emily realized there was no crib set up. Jason should have done that. It was one of the things he promised to have ready. I brought the portable crib, she said, trying to stay calm. It's in one of the suitcases. They set up the crib together in the living room, since the single bedroom was clearly Jason's. His clothes in the closet, his shoes scattered on the floor. There was no space prepared for her or for Noah. When they finally put Noah to sleep, Emily sat on the couch exhausted. It was 4 in the afternoon, but felt like midnight. Emily, Margaret said, sitting beside her, can I be very direct with you? Yes. You're showing signs of postpartum depression, and from how you describe your marriage, it seems you're not getting the support you need. I'm not depressed, Emily protested weakly, just tired. Chronic fatigue is one of the symptoms, Margaret explained, along with feelings of inadequacy, constant anxiety, difficulty connecting emotionally. Emily wanted to disagree, but couldn't. Margaret was describing exactly what she had been feeling for months. Even if I am, what do I do? She asked. Jason doesn't believe in therapy. Says it's a waste of time and money. Jason doesn't need to believe, Richard said firmly. You don't need his permission to take care of yourself. But he's my husband. And you're a person, Margaret interrupted, with needs, with rights, with a life that matters just as much as his. The words resonated with Emily. When had she forgotten that? When had she started believing her needs always came second? I can't afford treatment, she repeated. I already told you the program is free, Margaret replied. And besides, Richard has a proposal for you. Emily looked at Richard curiously. A proposal? You need help, he said directly, and I need a purpose. So here's my proposal. Let me fund a comprehensive support program for you. A pediatrician for Noah, a psychologist for you, and if needed, practical help with daily tasks. I can't accept that, Emily said immediately. It would be charity. It's not charity, Richard corrected. It's a helping hand. There's a difference. But why? Why would you do this for me? You don't even know me. Richard went to the window and looked out. When he turned back, his eyes were wet. Because when my daughter was sick, when we needed help, no one reached out. Everyone had their reasons, their excuses, and I watched my family fall apart because I was too proud to ask for what we needed. I don't want you to make the same mistake, he continued. I don't want you to look back years from now and regret not accepting help when it was offered. Emily felt the tears fall again. She was so tired of being strong, so tired of carrying everything alone. What if Jason doesn't like it? She asked. Then he'll have to deal with it, Margaret replied, because if he truly cares about you and Noah, he'll support what's best for you. Emily thought of Jason, of the man she married, of the father she hoped he would be, and of the stranger he was becoming. All right, she said finally. I accept the help. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. Richard smiled. It was a genuine smile, the first she had seen since they met. Great, tomorrow Margaret will stop by to schedule the appointments, and today you're going to rest. But Jason will be home and he'll understand that you were exhausted from a long trip, Margaret interrupted. Let us take care of everything. Before Emily could protest, Richard was making calls. In less than an hour, food was delivered, baby supplies that were missing, and even clean clothes for her because the suitcases hadn't been fully unpacked yet. Emily watched it all in a daze. No one had ever taken care of her like that. It was strange, but it was also wonderful. When Margaret and Richard finally said goodbye, it was already night. Emily hugged them emotionally. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "No need to thank us," Margaret replied. "We'll see you tomorrow." When they left, Emily felt alone again. But it was a different kind of loneliness, because now she knew she wasn't completely alone. There were people willing to help, people who cared. She gave Noah a bath and put on his pajamas. The baby was calmer, the ear discomfort fading. Emily rocked him, softly singing the lullaby her mother always sang to her when she was little. That's how Jason found her, sitting on the couch in the dark, rocking a sleeping Noah. "You're home," he said, entering the apartment. Emily looked at her husband, really looked at him for the first time in months. He was thinner. He had dark circles under his eyes. His suit was wrinkled. But there was something else. Something in the way he looked at her, or rather, didn't look at her. "I am," she replied simply. "How was the flight?" "Complicated." Noah had an earache. "Oh," Jason said, taking off his jacket. "Is he okay now?" "He is." He went to the refrigerator and seemed surprised by the food. "You bought all this?" "No. Some friends helped." "What friends? You don't know anyone here." Emily hesitated. How to explain Richard and Margaret? How to tell him about the proposal without Jason exploding? "I met them on the flight. They were kind and helped out." Jason grabbed a soda and went to the bedroom without another word. Emily heard the shower turn on. When Jason came out 20 minutes later, she had put Noah in the crib and was unpacking some boxes. "Leave that for tomorrow," Jason said. "I'm tired." "Jason, we need to talk." "Not now, Emily. I had a tough day." "So did I," she replied, feeling her irritation grow. "I traveled alone with an 8-month-old baby on a flight, where he cried almost the entire time." Jason sighed irritably. "Okay, do you want a medal?" "That's what mothers do, Emily. They take care of their children." The response felt like a slap. Emily fell silent, processing his words. "That's what mothers do," she repeated slowly. "And what do fathers do, Jason?" "They work. They support the family. They make sure you have a roof over your head." "So my role is just to take care of Noah, and yours is just to work?" "That's basically it," Jason replied, not seeing the problem. Emily felt something break inside her. She had crossed the country with a sick baby to join a man who saw her only as a nanny. "Were you always like this?" she asked. "Or did you change when Noah was born?" "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about you. About us. About how you're becoming more and more distant." Jason rubbed his tired face. "Emily, let's not do this now. Not today." "Then when? When will you have time for us to really talk? When I'm not exhausted from working all day?" "And what about me?" Emily asked, feeling the tears return. "Do you think I'm not exhausted from taking care of a baby alone for 6 months?" Jason fell silent. His face showed irritation, but also something else. Guilt, perhaps. "Look," he said in a softer tone, "I know it's been hard, but it will get better. I just need to get settled in my job and then what? You'll magically become the man I married again?" "I haven't changed." "Yes, you have," Emily said sadly, "and I've changed too. But at least I'm trying to deal with it." Noah started crying. Emily automatically went to him, but Jason held her by the arm. "Let me go," he said. Emily was surprised, but let him. Jason picked up Noah awkwardly. The baby cried louder, sensing the tension. "He's not used to you," Emily said, taking Noah back. "It's been a long time since you last held him." The accusation was clear. Jason looked hurt but didn't disagree. "I'm going to sleep," he said, heading to the bedroom. Emily was left alone in the living room with Noah. She calmed him down and put him back in the crib. Then she sat on the sofa and cried silently. Was this what awaited her? A marriage where they were just roommates sharing responsibilities? Where Jason worked and she took care of Noah, and they never really connected? She thought of Richard and Margaret. How two strangers had shown more care and attention in a few hours than her own husband had in months. Emily picked up her phone and opened the family group. Her mother had sent several messages asking if she had arrived safely. She typed a short reply saying everything was fine, but it wasn't, and she was tired of pretending it was. The night was long. Noah woke up twice. Jason didn't move either time. Emily fed the baby, changed diapers, soothed cries, all alone as always. When the sun began to rise, Emily was sitting by the living room window watching New York City wake up. The city was beautiful in a way, but also scary. Noah woke up around 7. Emily prepared the bottle and fed him while Jason continued sleeping. She didn't wake him. What difference would it make? Around 9, the doorbell rang. Emily answered the intercom. "Emily, it's me, Margaret." Emily opened the door. Margaret came in with a bag full of things. "I brought breakfast," she said, showing bread, cold cuts, fruit. "I thought you might need it." "Thank you," Emily said, touched by the gesture. They set the table in the living room. Jason came out of the room rubbing his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked Margaret, confused. "Margaret Harrison. I'm a psychologist." "I met your wife yesterday." Jason looked from Margaret to Emily. "What is she talking about?" "Sit down," Emily said. "We need to talk." Jason sat down suspiciously. Emily told him about the flight, about Richard, about Margaret and the support program. "Are you telling me you accepted help from strangers?" Jason asked incredulously. "I accepted help from people who care," Emily corrected. "You don't even know them." "And you?" Emily shot back. "When was the last time you really knew me, Jason?" "Don't start this again, Emily." "It's not starting again," Margaret intervened calmly. "Emily is just asking for what she needs. And honestly, Jason, she needs a lot." "With all due respect," Jason said with no respect at all, "but this is none of your business." "You're right, it's not," Margaret agreed. "But it is Emily's business, and she decided to accept help." Jason looked at Emily as if he expected her to back down, but Emily stood firm. "I need this, Jason," she said. "I need support, and if you can't give it to me, then I'll accept it from those who can." "This is ridiculous. We don't need charity." "It's not charity," Emily repeated Richard's words. "It's a helping hand." Jason stood up angrily. "Do whatever you want," he said, "but don't involve me in it." He went back to the bedroom and slammed the door. Emily felt the tears coming, but Margaret held her hand. "You did the right thing," she said. Putting your needs first isn't selfish, it's survival." They had coffee together while Noah played in his crib. Margaret explained how the program would work: weekly sessions with her, medical follow-up for Noah, and even practical help with daily tasks if needed. "What about Jason?" Emily asked. "Jason will have to learn to deal with it," Margaret replied. "Either he accepts it or he doesn't. But that decision can't be in his hands." Emily nodded, knowing Margaret was right. In the following days, Emily began to adapt to New York City. Margaret helped her find a pediatrician for Noah, get to know the neighborhood, and discover where the markets and pharmacies were. Jason remained distant. He left early and came back late. When he was home, he stayed in the bedroom working on his computer. It was as if they lived in parallel worlds. A week later, Emily had her first therapy session with Margaret. It was difficult. Margaret asked questions Emily didn't want to answer. She brought up feelings Emily preferred to keep buried. "You have postpartum depression," Margaret confirmed. "It's treatable, but it needs serious follow-up." "Do I need medication?" "Maybe. Let's see how you respond to therapy first." Emily began to notice patterns in her thoughts, how she always put Jason's and Noah's needs above her own, how she felt guilty for any moment of rest, how she believed she wasn't good enough as a mother or wife. "That's not true," Margaret said firmly. "You are a wonderful mother who is doing the best she can under difficult circumstances." The words hit deep. Emily cried throughout the session. 2 weeks after arriving in New York City, Emily met Richard again. He stopped by to see how she was doing. "How's the adjustment going?" he asked, sitting in the living room. "It's hard," Emily admitted honestly. "Jason isn't making it any easier." "Is he still giving you little support?" "He practically ignores me," Emily said, feeling the sadness tighten. "It's as if Noah and I were just furniture in his apartment." Richard was silent for a moment. Emily, can I tell you something about my past? Of course. When Emma got sick, my wife and I grew apart, he began. We each dealt with the grief differently. I buried myself in work, she isolated herself at home. And in the end, when Emma passed away, we couldn't reconnect. You got divorced? We separated a year later, Richard confirmed, and it was the worst decision I ever made. Because even with all the pain, we could have supported each other, but we chose to drift apart. Why are you telling me this? Because I see you and Jason going down the same path, Richard said gently. And I want you to know there's still time to change that, but it can't be just you trying. Jason needs to try too. Emily nodded, knowing he was right. And if he doesn't try? Then you'll have to make difficult decisions, Richard answered honestly. Decisions about what's best for you and Noah. The possibility of leaving Jason had never seriously crossed Emily's mind, but now it was there, planted by Richard. That night, Emily confronted Jason. We need to have a real talk, she said when he got home from work. Not now, Emily. Yes, now, she insisted. Because if not now, it'll never happen. Jason sighed but sat down. Go ahead then. Our marriage is falling apart, Emily said bluntly. Don't be dramatic. It's not drama, it's the truth. You barely look at me, you don't spend time with Noah, we live like strangers. I'm working to secure our future. What future? Emily asked. One where we're unhappy but financially stable. You're exaggerating. Am I? Emily felt the anger growing. When was the last time you asked how I am? When was the last time you held Noah? When was the last time you acted like you cared about us? Jason stayed silent. His face showed defensiveness, but also something more. Recognition, perhaps. I don't know what you want from me, he said finally. I want you to be present, Emily replied. Not just physically, but emotionally. I want you to be my partner again, not just the man I share an apartment with. I'm doing the best I can. Then your best isn't enough, Emily said the words she never thought she'd say. And I need to decide if that's enough for me. Jason looked at her shocked. Are you threatening me? No, I'm being honest for the first time in months. They fell silent. Noah started crying. Emily went to attend to him, but Jason stopped her. Let me go, he said. And he went. Picked up Noah, and for the first time in weeks, calmed his son with patience. Emily watched from the bedroom door. There was hope there, small but present. In the following days, Jason started to change. Slowly, but he changed. Came home earlier some nights, held Noah for a few minutes, asked about Emily's day. It wasn't perfect. There was still tension. There were still moments when Jason fell back into old habits, but Emily saw effort, and effort was a start. During a session with Margaret, Emily talked about the changes. He's trying, she said, but I don't know if it's enough. Only you can decide what's enough, Margaret replied. But the question is, are you willing to work on the marriage if Jason is too, Emily thought. She loved Jason, or at least loved the man he used to be. And maybe with effort from both of them, they could find that man again. I am, she answered, but he needs to do therapy too. Have you talked to him about that? Not yet, but I will. That night, Emily proposed couples therapy. Jason resisted initially. I don't need therapy, he said defensively. It's not about needing, Emily explained. It's about wanting to improve our marriage. And you think it's that bad? I think it can be better, Emily answered honestly. Jason thought for a long time. Emily could see the internal struggle on his face. Okay, he agreed finally, but I'm not promising anything. You don't need to promise. You just need to try. The first couples therapy session was uncomfortable. The therapist, a man named Dr. Wilson, asked questions neither of them wanted to answer. When did you stop seeing each other as partners? He asked. Emily and Jason looked at each other. Neither of them knew how to answer with certainty. I think it was gradual, Emily said finally. After Noah was born, we became so focused on him that we forgot about each other. Jason, "Do you agree?" Dr. Wilson asked. "Yes," Jason admitted quietly. "And I didn't know how to handle it." Handle what specifically? The responsibility, the changes, the fact that our lives would never be the same again. It was the first time Jason had spoken openly about his feelings. Emily felt tears in her eyes. "And how did you handle it?" Dr. Wilson pressed. "I distanced myself," Jason confessed. "I threw myself into work because it was something I could control, something where I felt competent. And by doing that, you left Emily alone with all the responsibilities." "I know," Jason said, looking at Emily. "And I'm sorry." Emily wanted to believe. She wanted to believe that apology was genuine. But words were easy. Actions were what mattered. The sessions continued weekly. Slowly, Jason and Emily began to rebuild their connection. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks. There were nights where they fell back into old patterns. But there was also progress. Jason began to get more involved with Noah. He gave him baths, changed diapers, played with him. Emily saw their son light up with his father's attention, and Jason began to pay attention to Emily too. Small things at first, asking about her day, bringing dinner when he passed by a restaurant, holding her hand while they watched TV. 1 month after starting therapy, Jason came home early with flowers. "For you," he said, handing them to Emily. She was surprised. How long had it been since he last brought flowers? "Why?" she asked. "Because I realized I never thank you," Jason said, "for everything you do, for putting up with my awful behavior, for not giving up on us." Emily felt the tears fall. "I was close to giving up," she admitted. "Very close." "I know, and I'm grateful you didn't." They hugged. It was the first genuine hug in months. Emily allowed herself to melt into his arms, feeling something she thought she had lost forever. But the journey wasn't just about the marriage. Emily continued her own work in therapy with Margaret, discovering who she was beyond being a mother and wife, rediscovering her passions and dreams. "What did you like to do before Noah?" Margaret asked in one session. Emily thought. It seemed like a lifetime ago. "I used to paint," she remembered. "Watercolors mostly." "And why did you stop?" "I didn't have time. With Noah and the house and—" "What if you made time?" Margaret suggested, "even if it's 30 minutes a day." The idea seemed impossible, but also liberating. Emily bought a basic watercolor kit. She started painting while Noah napped. They were simple things at first, flowers, abstract landscapes, but each brushstroke was therapeutic. Jason noticed. "You're painting again," he commented, observing the canvases Emily had hung in the living room. "I am. I forgot how good it makes me feel." "They're beautiful," Jason said sincerely. "You've always been talented." The compliment warmed Emily's heart. Jason was really trying to see her again, not just as Noah's mother or as his wife, but as Emily. 2 months in New York City, Emily began to feel more comfortable. She met other mothers at the park where she took Noah. She started exploring the city, discovering charming cafes and cozy bookstores. Margaret encouraged her to create her own support network. "Richard and I can't be your only connections here," she said. "You need friendships, community." Emily started attending a support group for mothers that Margaret coordinated. There she found other women going through similar difficulties: postpartum depression, strained marriages, the daily struggle of balancing everything. "I'm not alone," Emily realized. "We're all fighting." "Exactly," Margaret said, "and together we're stronger." In the group, Emily met Amanda, a mother of 2 who became a close friend. They started scheduling regular meetups, taking turns watching the children while the other rested. "You saved me," Amanda said one day. "I was drowning until I met you." "We saved each other," Emily corrected. The friendship gave Emily something she hadn't had in a long time: normalcy. Someone to confide in without judgment. Someone who understood the struggle because they were living it too. Jason noticed the change in Emily. She was lighter, more present, less overwhelmed. "The sessions with Margaret are working," he commented. "They are, and the support group too. I'm glad, Jason said. You seem like you again. Emily smiled. She was starting to feel like herself. Not the Emily from before Noah, but a new version. Stronger, more aware, more whole. 3 months after arriving in New York City, a pivotal moment occurred. Jason came home from work looking troubled. He sat on the couch without speaking. Emily, who was feeding Noah, felt the tension. What happened? She asked. They offered me a promotion, Jason said without emotion. That's great. Why don't you seem happy? Because the promotion means traveling, a lot, being away for weeks. Emily felt her stomach tighten. Weeks away meant being alone with Noah again. It meant going back to square one. Are you going to accept it? She asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Jason finally looked at her. I don't know. I wanted to talk to you first. The surprise was genuine. Jason was consulting her. He was considering her feelings in the decision. And what do you want to do? Emily asked. Financially, it would be great, Jason admitted. But I don't know if it's worth the cost. The cost to you, to Noah, to us. Emily put Noah in the crib and sat next to Jason. If it was 6 months ago, you would have accepted without even asking, right? Jason nodded, embarrassed. But I don't want to do that again, he said. I don't want to lose you two because of work. Then refuse, Emily said simply. But the money, it's not worth it if it destroys our family, Emily interrupted. We have enough. Maybe not in abundance, but we do. Jason hugged her. When did you get so wise? When I was forced to see what really matters, Emily replied. The next day, Jason turned down the promotion. His boss wasn't happy, but Jason stood by his decision. And for the first time since they moved, Jason and Emily felt like a real team. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Life began to find a rhythm. Jason worked but was also present. Emily took care of Noah but also took care of herself. They went to couples therapy and actively worked on their marriage. 4 months after the move, Richard invited them to dinner at his house. It was a mansion in an upscale neighborhood, but decorated with understated taste. Welcome, he said, greeting them at the door. Margaret was there too, along with a few other people from the support program. It was a casual but meaningful gathering. Emily saw how Richard had transformed his pain into purpose, helping other families. During dinner, Richard shared more about Emma. She was 3 years old when we found out she was sick, he told. Leukemia. We fought for a whole year. But in the end, he didn't need to finish. Everyone understood. My wife never forgave me for not being present during the treatment, Richard continued. I was so focused on finding cures, on working to pay for the treatments, that I forgot to simply be there. And when Emma left, there was nothing left to hold us together. The grief destroyed us because we never learned to support each other. Emily Collins held Jason's hand under the table. They had almost followed the same path, but they didn't. They chose differently. You two gave me hope, Richard Harrison said, looking at Emily and Jason. Seeing you fight for your marriage, choosing to be present, showed me that not all stories have to end like mine. You gave us that too, Emily replied. If it weren't for you and Margaret, I don't know where we'd be. Probably separated, Jason admitted honestly. I was destroying everything that mattered. The evening was emotional but also healing. Emily realized they weren't just being helped. They were also helping Richard heal his own wounds. 5 months in New York City, Noah turned 1. They had a small party at the apartment. They invited Amanda and her family, Margaret, Richard, and some of Jason's co-workers who had become friends of the couple. Emily made the cake herself, a simple chocolate creation but made with love. Noah, wearing a special outfit that Emily's mother sent, was radiant. I can hardly believe it's been a year, Emily said to Jason as they watched Noah destroy the cake with his little hands. And what a year, Jason replied, for all of us. Emily thought about the flight, Noah's endless crying, the desperation she felt. She thought about Richard reaching out, offering help. She thought about all the twists and difficulties. It's worth it, she said. All the suffering, all the struggle. It's worth getting here. Jason kissed her forehead. It really is. But Emily's journey wasn't complete. Margaret had planted a seed that was starting to sprout. "Have you ever thought about helping other mothers?" Margaret asked in one of their sessions. "How do you mean?" "You've been through so much, learned so much. Your experience could help other women who are at the beginning of the journey." The idea was intimidating. Emily helping other people, she who had needed so much support. "I don't know if I'm qualified," she admitted. "You're more qualified than you think," Margaret assured, "because you've lived it. You understand the struggle in a way books and theories could never teach." Emily started thinking about it, and the more she thought, the more the idea made sense. She started slowly, sharing her story in the support group, offering to mentor new mothers who had just had babies. The response was overwhelming. Other women identified with her story, found hope in her recovery. "You have a gift," Amanda said, after seeing Emily counseling a new mother. "A gift for making people feel seen and understood." Emily had never thought of it as a gift, but maybe it was. Maybe her pain could be transformed into something beautiful. Richard noticed Emily's growth. "You're different," he commented in one of their regular meetings. "I feel different," Emily admitted. "I feel purposeful. That's how I felt when I started funding the program," Richard shared. "Like my pain finally meant something." "Thank you for showing me it was possible," Emily said. "You didn't just save me on that flight, you showed me a path." "You did the rest yourself," Richard corrected. "I just offered a hand. You were the one brave enough to take it." 6 months in New York City, Emily made a significant decision. With Margaret's encouragement and Jason's support, she decided to become certified as a maternal support counselor. "It'll take time," Jason said when she told him. "And money." "I know, but it's what I want to do." Jason smiled. "Then we'll make it work. Together." The word "together" warmed Emily's heart. They really were a team now. Emily started an online course. She studied while Noah napped. Jason supported her by taking care of the baby on nights when she had to attend live classes. Amanda also enrolled in the course. They studied together, testing each other, sharing the load. "We're going to do this," Amanda said confidently. "We're going to help as many mothers as we can." Margaret was proud. "You two are going to be amazing," she said. "And when you finish, I want you to work with me on the program." The prospect was exciting and scary. Emily never imagined she would become a counselor, but life had a funny way of taking you down unexpected paths. 7 months after the move, Emily had a relapse. There were a few difficult days where the depression came back strong. She couldn't get out of bed. She couldn't stop crying. Jason noticed and didn't hesitate. "I'll take a few days off," he said, "to take care of you and Noah." "You can't," Emily protested weakly. "Your job." "It can wait," Jason interrupted. "You can't." He called Margaret, who came immediately. Together they cared for Emily during the crisis. Temporary medication was prescribed. Rest was enforced. "It's normal to have relapses," Margaret explained. "It's part of the process." "I feel weak," Emily admitted. "You're not weak," Jason said, holding her hand. "You're the strongest person I know. And it's okay not to be strong all the time." The words broke something in Emily. She cried, but they were tears of relief. Jason was there, really there. Not as a spectator, but as a partner. The relapse lasted a week. Slowly, Emily found her balance again, but this time she didn't feel ashamed for needing help. She accepted it as part of her journey. 8 months in New York City, something unexpected happened. Emily's mother called in a panic. "Honey, I need to tell you something," she said in a tense voice. "What is it, Mom?" "Your father, he had a heart problem. He's in the hospital." Emily felt the world spin. Her father, always so strong, was sick. "I need to go to Boston," she said, hanging up the phone. Jason didn't hesitate. "I'll request time off. We'll all go together." "But your job—" "Emily," Jason interrupted, "family comes first. Always." They caught a flight the next day. Emily held Noah nervously during the trip. Memories of the first flight flooded her mind, but this time was different. Noah was bigger, calmer, and she wasn't alone. "It's okay," Jason said, holding her hand. "Your father is strong. He'll pull through." At the hospital in Boston, Emily saw her father for the first time in months. He was pale, connected to machines, but his eyes lit up when he saw her. "My girl," he said weakly. Emily hugged her father, crying. Her mother explained that he had had a mild heart attack, but the prognosis was good. "You gave us a scare," Emily said. "Sorry, sweetie, but I'm fine now." Noah whimpered in Jason's arms. The grandfather smiled when he saw his grandson. "He's grown so much," he said with tears in his eyes. Emily carefully placed Noah in her grandfather's lap. Seeing her father hold her son was a moment of pure emotion. They stayed in Boston for 2 weeks while Emily's father recovered. During this time, Emily realized something fundamental. Her mother was exhausted too. She had cared for her husband, worked, kept the house, all alone. "Mum," Emily said one night, "are you okay?" Her mother broke down. "I'm tired, Emily, so tired." Emily hugged her mother and for the first time understood completely. We all carry invisible burdens. We all fight in silence. We all need help but are afraid to ask. "Let me help," Emily offered. "I'm here now." Together, mother and daughter cared for the father. They shared responsibilities, and in the process, they rebuilt their own relationship. "You've changed," her mother commented. "Mother, are you stronger?" "I had to change," Emily replied, "to survive." When they returned to New York City, Emily brought a new perspective. She had seen pain and resilience in her own family. She had seen how love can be shown through small acts of care. 9 months in New York City, Emily and Amanda finished the course. They passed the final exam and received their certifications as maternal support counselors. "We did it," Amanda shouted, hugging Emily. "We really did," Emily replied emotionally. Margaret organized a small ceremony. Richard was there, proud as a father. "You two are going to make such a difference," he said. Emma would be proud. It was the first time Richard mentioned Emma without visible pain on his face. Emily realized he was healing too. Slowly, but he was. Emily and Amanda officially started working in Margaret's program. They attended to new mothers, offered support groups, made home visits when necessary. The work was challenging but rewarding. Emily saw her own story reflected in every mother she helped. She saw the desperation, the exhaustion, the feeling of inadequacy. "I understand," she told them, "because I went through it too." And that simple phrase made all the difference. Knowing they weren't alone, that someone had been in the same hole and managed to get out. 10 months in New York City, Emily received an unexpected call. It was the mother of one of the mothers she had helped. "Emily, I need to thank you," the woman said, crying. "You saved my daughter." Emily was confused. "I don't understand. My daughter was considering giving up on everything. She was in a very dark place. But you helped her see that there was hope, that there was a way." Emily felt tears in her eyes. She had made a difference, truly made a difference. "I only did what someone did for me," Emily said humbly, "and for that I am eternally grateful." When she hung up, Emily reflected on her journey, from a desperate mother on a plane to someone who now helped other mothers. It had been a complete transformation. Jason found her crying in the living room. "What happened?" he asked worriedly. Emily told him about the call. Jason hugged her proudly. "You are amazing," he said, "and I'm glad the world is finding that out." 1 year after moving to New York City, they held a special gathering. They invited everyone who had been part of their journey. Richard, Margaret, Amanda, the mothers Emily had helped, Jason's colleagues. "I want to thank everyone," Emily said, making a toast. "A year ago, I was a lost and desperate woman. Today, thanks to all of you, I found my way." "It wasn't just me," Richard protested. "You did the work." "But you showed me it was possible," Emily insisted. "On that flight, when you reached out to hold Noah, you weren't just helping my son. You were saving me too." Richard became emotional. "And you saved me back," he admitted. "Seeing you flourish, seeing you transform your pain into purpose gave new meaning to my own pain." Margaret raised her glass. "To new beginnings," she said, "and to the courage to ask for help." Everyone toasted. Emily looked around, seeing all those people who had become her family in New York City, a family she had chosen, a family that had chosen her back. Noah, now 1 year and 1 month old, was walking clumsily around the room. Everyone laughed at his adorable attempts to stay on his feet. Emily watched him with a full heart. "He's getting big," Jason commented beside her. "He is, and happy." "And you?" Jason asked. "Are you happy?" Emily thought about the question. A year ago, happiness seemed impossible, but now, "I am," she answered honestly. Not perfectly, not without challenges, but genuinely happy. Jason kissed her forehead. "I'm glad." But Emily's story was just beginning. Margaret's program was growing, and they needed to expand. Richard proposed something ambitious. "What if we open a center dedicated to maternal support?" he suggested in a meeting. "Not just appointments, but a physical space where mothers can come, rest, receive support." The idea was revolutionary. Emily and Amanda looked at each other excitedly. "That would be amazing," Amanda said. "A safe place for mothers." "Funding isn't a problem," Richard assured. "I have the resources. The question is, are you willing to lead this?" Emily felt the weight of the question. Lead a center. Her, who a year ago could barely take care of herself. "I am," she said with conviction, "if Amanda is with me." "Always," Amanda replied. They began planning the center. They looked for a suitable space, designed the programs, recruited more counselors. It was intense work, but Emily had never felt so alive. Jason was completely supportive. He had learned to balance work and family. On nights when Emily had meetings, he took care of Noah. Weekends were dedicated to family. "We really are a team now," Emily said one night. "We always were," Jason replied. "We just needed to learn to play together." 15 months after the fateful flight, Emma's maternal support center was inaugurated. Richard had chosen the name in honor of his daughter. "She would have loved this," he said with tears in his eyes during the opening. The center was beautiful. Walls in soft tones, comfortable rooms for appointments, a common area where mothers could relax, even a dark room for rest. "It's perfect," Emily said, hugging Richard. "Emma would be proud." The response to the center was immediate. Mothers came from all over New York City seeking help. Some were like Emily had been, desperate and alone. Others just needed a space to breathe. Emily led with compassion, but also with strength. She had learned that helping others also meant setting boundaries, taking care of herself. "You can't help anyone if you yourself are drowning," Margaret reminded her regularly. Emily took the advice seriously. She kept up with her own therapy sessions, made time to paint, cultivated her friendships, and most importantly, nurtured her marriage. Jason and Emily instituted a weekly date night. They left Noah with a babysitter and went out just the two of them. Simple dinners, walks in the park, movie nights. What mattered was the time together. "When did we become real adults?" Jason joked on one of these dates. "When we had to grow up," Emily replied. "When we had no choice." "I'm glad we grew up together," Emily agreed. They could easily have grown apart in opposite directions, but they chose to grow together, and that made all the difference. 18 months after the move, Emily received an unexpected invitation. A conference on maternal mental health in Washington, D.C. wanted her to be a speaker. "Me?" Emily asked incredulously. "They want me to speak?" "Your story is powerful," Margaret explained, "and people need to hear it." Emily was terrified. Public speaking had never been her strong suit, but Amanda encouraged her. "You help mothers every day by talking to them. This is just on a larger scale." Emily accepted the invitation. She spent weeks preparing her speech. She practiced in front of Jason, Margaret, Richard. Everyone said it was perfect. On the day of the conference, Emily was trembling backstage. There were hundreds of people in the audience. Healthcare professionals, politicians, other mothers. "You can do this," Jason said, holding her hands. He had taken time off to accompany her. "Just be yourself." Emily walked onto the stage on shaky legs. She looked at the audience and saw expectant faces. For a moment, she thought about running away, But then she saw a young mother in the front row. She was holding a baby and had deep, dark circles under her eyes. Her face was one of pure desperation. Emily recognized that expression. It was her 18 months ago. She took a deep breath and began to speak. "My name is Emily Collins, and a year and a half ago I was drowning." She told her story. The flight, Noah's crying, the desperation she felt. Richard extending his hands, Margaret offering help, the postpartum depression, the struggle in the marriage, the path to recovery. "It wasn't easy," she said. "There were days when I wanted to give up, days when I thought I'd never get better, but I did, and if I managed, you can too." The audience was in absolute silence. When Emily finished, there was a pause before the applause began. But when it started, it was thunderous. The young mother in the front row was crying. After the talk, she approached Emily. "Thank you," she said simply. "I needed to hear that." "How can I help?" Emily asked. "You already have. You showed me I'm not alone." Emily hugged the young woman, and in that moment she knew she had found her true calling. Not just helping mothers individually, but also sharing her story widely, giving voice to those who suffered in silence. 2 years after that fateful flight, Emily was sitting at the same JFK International Airport. But this time was different. Noah was 2 years old now and excited about the trip. Jason was by her side, attentive and present. They were going to Boston to visit Emily's parents, but this time it was a trip of joy, not emergency. "Nervous?" Jason asked. "A little," Emily admitted. But for different reasons. They boarded the same flight Emily had taken 2 years earlier. Emily felt strange entering the plane. So many memories from that day. "Everything okay?" Jason asked, noticing her expression. "Just remembering," Emily replied. They sat down and Emily looked around. Mothers traveling with babies, businessmen, families, each with their own stories. Noah started getting restless during takeoff. Emily calmed him easily, applying all the techniques she had learned. There was no crying. There was no desperation. "You're so good at this now," Jason commented. "I had good teachers," Emily replied, thinking of Richard. During the flight, a mother sitting behind her started having difficulties. Her baby wouldn't stop crying and she was clearly desperate. Emily turned around. "Can I help?" she offered. The mother looked at her with tears in her eyes. "I don't know what to do. He won't stop crying." Emily saw her reflection from 2 years ago. Without hesitation, she offered the same techniques Richard had shared with her. The mother followed the guidance, and gradually the baby calmed down. "Thank you," the mother said, relieved. "How did you know what to do?" "Because I've been in your place," Emily replied, "and someone helped me. Now it's my turn to help you." They talked during the rest of the flight. Emily shared her story and gave information about the Emma Center. The mother, who also lived in New York City, promised to visit. When the plane landed, Jason hugged Emily. "You did what Richard did for you," he said. "I know. And I felt as good as I imagine he felt." In Boston, Emily's family welcomed them warmly. Her father had fully recovered. Her mother was more relaxed, having learned to ask for help when needed. "You look happy," her mother commented while they prepared lunch together. "I am," Emily replied. "Finally I am. Tell me about the center." Emily spoke excitedly about the work, about the mothers she helped, about the expansion plans. Her mother listened proudly. "You turned your pain into something beautiful," she said. "I'm so proud of you." The words warmed Emily's heart. Maternal approval had always been important to her, but now she didn't need it to validate her choices. It was just a bonus. During the visit, Emily reconnected with old friends. They asked about New York City, about Noah, about everything. "You seem different," one of them commented. "I feel different," Emily admitted, "but more like myself, if that makes sense." "It makes total sense. You're glowing." On the last night in Boston, Emily was lying in bed next to Jason. Noah slept peacefully in the crib beside them. "What are you thinking about?" Jason asked. "About everything, about how much has changed, about how much we've changed." "For the better," Jason added. "Definitely for the better," Emily agreed. But there were moments when I thought we wouldn't make it. Me too, Jason admitted. I was a jerk for a long time. You were. But you changed. Because you didn't give up on me, even when you had every reason to. Emily turned to look at him. I didn't give up because I saw you were trying, and trying means everything. They kissed. It was a gentle kiss, but full of meaning. A kiss that said, we made it, we survived, we're stronger now. Back in New York City, life went on at its own pace. The Emma Center was growing steadily. They had helped hundreds of mothers in the first year. The impact was measurable not just in numbers, but in transformed lives. Richard was happier than Emily had ever seen him. He had started dating again, a teacher named Rebecca whom he met through the center. I never thought I'd be able to move on, he confessed to Emily. But you showed me it's possible to honor the past while building a future. Emma will always be with you, Emily said, but she wouldn't want you to stop living. I know, and I think I'm finally ready to live again. Seeing Richard happy was rewarding. He had saved Emily, and in a way, she had helped save him back. It was a beautiful cycle of healing and hope. Margaret was considering retiring and handing over the program's leadership to Emily and Amanda. You're ready, she said, and I need to slow down. Emily was nervous about the responsibility, but also excited. She and Amanda had proven they could lead. Now it was time to truly take over. Amanda was pregnant again. Her second child was on the way. This time she was prepared. She had a support network, knowledge, tools to handle the difficulties. I won't make the same mistakes, she told Emily. I know when to ask for help now. And I'll be here when you need me, Emily assured. Noah was growing fast. He was a cheerful and curious child. Emily sometimes looked at him and marveled at how much he had grown since that terrible flight. Remember when you were so tiny, she said while rocking him one night. Noah just smiled and hugged his mother tighter. Love you, Mommy, he said in his sweet little voice. I love you too, my love, more than anything in the world. Jason came home and found the two hugging. He took a picture without them noticing. To remember this moment, he explained when Emily noticed, to remember how far we've come. Emily looked at the picture, her and Noah hugging, both smiling, an image of pure love and contentment. It was hard to believe there was a time when she struggled to feel a connection with her son. We're lucky, she said. We are, Jason agreed. But we also worked hard to get here. 3 years after that transformative flight, Emily was preparing a special lecture. It was the 3-year anniversary of the Emma Center, and there would be a big celebration. She was going to share not just her story, but also the stories of the hundreds of mothers who had been through the center, stories of pain and overcoming, stories of hope and new beginnings. Are you nervous? Amanda asked as they reviewed the presentation. A little, but also excited. You'll do great, as always. On the night of the celebration, the center was packed. Mothers who had been helped, their families, donors, healthcare professionals. Richard and Rebecca were in the front row, Margaret next to them, Jason with Noah in his arms. Emily Collins stepped onto the small makeshift stage and looked at all those faces. So many stories, so many victories. 3 years ago, she began, I was on a plane, desperate, alone, drowning. Today, I'm here, standing, helping other women who are where I once was. She told her story again, but this time she added what came after, the struggles, the victories, the growth. The Emma Center isn't just about me or Richard or Margaret, she explained. It's about all of us. Every mother who fought, who suffered, who almost gave up but didn't. We're a community, a chosen family. The words resonated. Women in the audience cried, but they were tears of recognition, of healing. And to Richard, Emily said, looking at him, thank you for reaching out that day. Thank you for showing me that accepting help isn't weakness, it's courage. Richard was visibly moved. He stood up and went to the stage, hugging Emily. No, he said, thank you for giving me a purpose, for honoring Emma in a way I never could. It was a powerful moment. The audience gave a standing ovation. Emily saw smiling faces, happy tears, hope everywhere. After the celebration, while helping clean up, Richard pulled Emily aside for a private conversation. "I have a proposal," he said. "Another one?" Emily joked. "I want to expand the Emma Center, open branches in other cities, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., maybe even Boston." Emily was speechless. It was ambitious, but it also made sense. "And you want me to lead the expansion," Richard finished. "You and Amanda. You have the vision, the experience, the passion." "It's a big responsibility," Emily said, but already felt the excitement growing. "I know, but if anyone can do it, it's you two," Emily thought. 2 years ago, she would have refused. She would have thought she wasn't capable. But now she knew her own worth. "Let me talk to Jason and Amanda," she said, "but I think it's a yes." Richard smiled. "I was sure it would be." At home that night, Emily told Jason about the proposal. "It's an amazing opportunity," Jason said, "but it will demand a lot from you." "I know. That's why I need to know if you'd support me." Jason didn't hesitate. "Always. In everything. Even if it means occasional trips, long days. As long as we always come back to each other at the end of the day, yes." Emily kissed her husband gratefully. They had come so far, from a marriage on the brink of collapse to a real strong partnership. Amanda also accepted the proposal. They began planning the expansion. It would be a process of years, but both were committed. "We're going to change lives," Amanda said excitedly. "We're already changing," Emily corrected. "We're just going to do it on a larger scale." The following years were ones of intense growth. The Emma Center opened branches in 4 cities. Emily and Amanda traveled constantly, training new counselors, establishing partnerships, sharing their vision. It was hard work. There were exhausting days. But Emily never felt she was sacrificing her family. Jason had become a true partner at home. On the days she traveled, he took care of everything, and when she returned, they reconnected as a team. Noah was 5 years old now, and understood that Mommy helped other mummies. He was proud of it. "My mum is a hero," he once told his teacher. When Emily found out, she cried with emotion. She wasn't a hero, but it was good to know her son saw her that way. 5 years after that fateful flight, Emily was on a plane again. But this time, she was going to Miami to open the 5th branch of the Emma Center. She looked out the window at the clouds. She thought about how strange life was, how a moment of absolute despair had turned into the catalyst for her greatest achievement. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Jason with a picture. Him and Noah making pancakes, both covered in flour and smiling. "Miss you, but proud of you, love you." Emily smiled. She had everything that mattered: a strong marriage, a healthy and happy son, work that gave meaning to her life. But she also had something more. She had herself. The Emily she had lost postpartum and found again through the struggle. The Emily who learned that asking for help wasn't weakness, but wisdom. The Emily who turned pain into purpose. Beside her, a young mother struggled with a crying baby. Emily recognized that look of desperation immediately. "Can I help?" she offered with a smile. The mother looked at her with tears in her eyes. "Please." And Emily helped, as someone had helped her. Because that's what we do. We extend our hands, we offer support, we create community. The cycle continued, from mother to mother, from heart to heart, from hope to hope. End of story. Now tell us, what did you think of Emily's journey? Have you ever been through difficult times where you needed to accept help? Leave your opinion in the comments. If this story touched your heart, leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel to follow other emotional stories like this one. Thank you for joining us.